Hey everybody, it's Chris Dortch welcoming you again to the CFF 2022 live stream. If you're tuning in right now, you're tuning in for something that I think is going to be very special. If you've been with us for the past few years, chances are you've had a chance to catch one of Joe Bob Briggs's amazing lectures. And we all know what an incredible audience that Joe Bob has built now that he's got The Last Drive-In happening on Shudder. And God bless every one of you out there in the Mutant fam that I know are probably watching this right now. But for me, I wanted to take a moment this year to sort of sing the praises of one of the other heroes from my youth as a kid that was, you know, home on Friday and Saturday nights a lot with very little to do but to watch movies my parents probably wouldn't be very happy I was watching if they knew what was happening in the other room. And sort of the ringmaster of that circus for a great many years for me was the host or one of the participants of our next event, Miss Rhonda Shear. To me, Rhonda was the quintessential Up All Night host, which is saying something too, because the Gilbert Gottfried era of the show was no slouch either. But Rhonda really took it to another level. She became someone that really put some of my all-time favorite pieces of bizarre genre and exploitation cinema into context for me, made me understand why they were special, and did it all with a smile and a hell of a lot of fun. And a few years ago, when we very first went virtual, our friend Liz Howe, the incredible creator and founder and runner of Demon Night Festival in Nashville, helped us do a little tribute of our own to USA Up All Night. We did it with our friends at Vinegar Syndrome, and Liz, in her pajamas, very kindly presented a double feature of incredible Vinegar Syndrome titles for us, as if she were Rhonda. It was a love letter to Rhonda for sure, definitely a love letter to Up All Night. And when we were figuring out who would be the absolute perfect person to lead this chat for us, Liz was the first and only choice. Liz herself is a bit of an Up All Night historian, and like myself, grew up in the era of Up All Night and loving Rhonda and loving all these films. So I hope right now you guys are going to take a chance and tune into this chat and learn some things about the history of Rhonda's life and all the incredible things that she's done since Up All Night, and really the things that she even did before Up All Night. And there's nobody better than Liz to get all those great stories out of her. I also want to encourage you, if you have fun with this chat, to seek out Rhonda's book, Up All Night, which is just filled with some of the most insane and hilarious Hollywood stories I've ever heard. Really, it's unbelievable reading. It's like on the same shelf as The Kid Stays in the Picture in my house by design, and I think it's well worth picking up. So if you love what you see here today, absolutely pick up Rhonda's book, and if you need a bra up, she's got you covered there too. So I'm sure that'll come up in the chat, but for now, let's go to Liz and Rhonda. It is a real honor.
My name is Liz Howell. You might know me as Pretty Hate Machine. If you live in the Nashville area, I'm a burlesque dancer here, and I also organize our annual dark music festival, Demon Night. And I have a side gig of hosting movies and hosting live streams too. And today I have the biggest honor of hosting an interview with one of my idols. Like, I am so nervous, right? I have interviewed so many celebrities, and I am so nervous right now that my voice is shaking, because this woman meant the world to me as a child and as an adult. As you can see, like, I'm 39 years old and my bedroom is still your bedroom. Like, it's everything that, like, all of my interests, all of these things were crafted by you, and you didn't even know it.
Oh, Liz, that's so sweet of you. It's so sweet, and what an honor for you telling me that. I mean, it gives me chills. Thank you to hear so many young people, you all are all very young to me, say that to me years later is huge. So thank you. And I know when I interviewed my idol, my teenage idol was Barbara Eden. I wanted to be I Dream of Jeannie badly. So I had interviewed thousands of people by the time I met Barbara Eden, and I was shaking. So I understand that, but I'm honored that, I remember I told her, I said, I'm so nervous to meet you, but so honored. And I love you're paying homage to Betty Page too, who I love, and Olivia, the great artist who's painted her and done amazing with her. But thank you so much for having me. This is a huge honor for me as well. And yes, I still love pink. I'm in my red throne chair, and above me, I know you can see it, is a gorgeous painting of Marilyn Monroe. So I still have a little bit of that in my life too.
I love it. I want to know, like, your beginnings. I know your beginnings in pageantry. Yeah. I've studied you extensively even before this interview. I know most of your history, your career history. But what got you into pageantry? What were the beginnings of Rhonda Shear?
I'm going to be really honest. Anything that would get me out to Hollywood and act, I used as a vehicle. So I did love the pageants, and my mom liked it. She liked all the pageant moms. It was kind of like a little community. And it was kind of my way to get in front of the camera. I was doing commercials rather young. And I also liked the competition. It wasn't like I was, wanting to compete with this girl or that girl. I mean, we were all friends. But I think what it taught me was to keep my blinders on and just make me the best. And just do my best, because I'm short. I'm 5'3", and usually pageant, well, they're much taller now, but back when I was in pageants, 5'7" was tall, and usually it was like 5 girls that were 5'7". So like, I'm 5'3", but I can feel big and think big. So I think what it did was it gave me a lot of confidence, because I was actually I know it sounds crazy, but I was a really shy kid, still very shy, one-on-one. I'm much better in a crowd of people than I am one-on-one. I'm the kind of person that walks into a party and then sits down as opposed to flitting to everybody. But I can speak in front of 5,000 people. It makes no sense because I have a mic in front of me. But anyway, I think it just gave me a lot of confidence because as a kid, I was bullied. I had curly hair, a little bit of a different nose. And kids would make fun. Straight hair was really in the 70s and 60s and 70s. I'm so old. And they would make fun of my really curly hair. So, I think that I used pageants and then later comedy to kind of give me that humor and kind of hide behind, it's a little bit of, and then Up All Night too, the character. The only thing that was bad about the character, Rhonda, was I wanted to get my name more in front of the Hollywood people so they would know me. But unlike Cassandra Peterson, Elvira, who used Elvira instead of Cassandra, for a couple of years after, until I left LA, I was really typecast as Up All Night Rhonda. So that kind of hurt. I mean, by now it's, I've grown out of that, aged out of it, I should say. But that was the only problem, is that I named my character the same as, but she was a character. I mean, even, now I know I'm blah, 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 blah. But, I'm on Home Shopping Network, and I have a line of women's intimates that I design. And my husband and I, we have them manufactured all over the world. It's thrilling to be on the business side. He's the businessman. I brought in front of, my love of fashion and design along, but my husband definitely has been the one to do the business side, I should say. We've learned a lot in 20 years, but it's so funny. The people and my buyers on HSN, Home Shopping Network, we just had a meeting with them the other day, and this is how many years after Up All Night. And every time we talk about, putting prints or design, they talk about, we see you as being like, this leopard print girl. I'm like, I'm really not that girl. And I mean, I love leopard. I love flashy. I love blingy. I'm from New Orleans. It's more of my love, my hometown. But I like, if you come to my house, it's not all pink leopard. Maybe I have one red throne chair, but it's not all pink leopard or rather pink leopard and feathers. So there are two sides, but it's funny. The stigma does kind of stay with you. But I do like sexy, and I think you're gorgeous. So just thought I would tell you. And thank you for playing.
And I could ever receive. So thank you. Thank you so much. Tell me about we'll start from the beginning, and then I want to make it all the way to, I'm the biggest All-Bra fan that's ever existed, probably. I'm on my 11th one. So I want to make it to that too. But you have been on so many television shows.
Yes.
I can remember seeing you in some television shows. Like, I remember your voiceover in Duckman, in that first episode of Duckman, because that was a big deal to me as a kid. Like, oh my God, that's Rhonda Shear. And I can remember, like, you were the hot neighbor and Married with Children. But when I really researched you, you have this amazing back catalog of
I do.
television work.
I loved working, and I never said no to work, which was either good or bad, because I would do it for a lot of money or I would do it for no money. It didn't matter. I just wanted to work. And so when I first went out to LA, either I was really behind the time or in front of the time. I can't figure it out. Like, I love Marilyn Monroe and those pinup girls and those pinup ladies, sexuality and sensuality is very open in LA. I kind of came from the era, and I kind of like it of being more flirty, which you can't be anymore. But I thought flirty is sexy, and, flirty is, and comedy can be sexy. And I always thought that was really cool. I loved Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield. Those ladies kind of did it with a wink, So, again, that's kind of what I wanted to do. But it was also my way. I had to deal with pre-Me Too era, right? So I was really a good girl in spite of, like, dressing really, really sexy. I came from, this family in New Orleans, an old-fashioned family, Southern New Orleans. And my mom was very sexy too, but she was like, you can let them look, but don't let them touch kind of person. I'm like, that's kind of weird. But anyway, that's how I grew up. So she also instilled that fear when I got out to LA that, God forbid, don't let in, be careful. Everybody's a rapist, But the thing was, not everybody was. And I probably missed a lot of opportunities by not either dating or meeting people because I was so afraid, because my mother and father had me so fearful. But also, I used humor to kind of hide behind advances from guys. So, and I also didn't take meetings in hotel rooms. So I understand the Me Too era, but I don't understand, like, oh, I'm going to go meet you in a hotel room for a part in a film. Like, I'm sorry, that is just not where meetings happen. But anyway, so I did use, and also every part, like everything I ever did, even commercials and pageants, they all helped me into even where I am today. So I'm one of those people that believe in taking all of your experiences in life, even the good and the bad, and using them. So I always tell young people when I'm talking in front of, in colleges, I like, even if you hate the job you're in, you're going to learn something. You'll take something away from it. So don't poo-poo it, So that's how I felt about all my experiences in LA. And also, I was grabbing for everything. And I know that probably wasn't the best way to go about it. But when I hit Los Angeles, after graduating in communications from Loyola in New Orleans, I didn't know anyone. So I didn't have family in the business. I didn't have friends in the industry. So I brought a couple of girlfriends and I talked them into coming for the summer with me to LA. So that made my parents happy that we all roomed together. But I didn't know anyone. So what I did was, the first thing that I knew how to do, I went back into pageants, which I hadn't done in years. So I won Miss Hollywood and I won Miss Press Club. But those pageants, I knew how to be a pageant girl, led me to meeting future agents. So that was the beginning of my contacts. And Miss Los Angeles Press Club was a huge, big deal then. I mean, it was affiliated with the press. And I don't guess I've had that pageant in a million years, but Marilyn Monroe, I think, was the first winner. And I think I was the last, which was very cool for me. So, but I just did a lot of the pageants and I did a lot of those things just to get in front of people and to meet people, because I wasn't about dating and sleeping around and socializing that way. I just didn't feel like that was the way to meet people. So whatever would put me in front of people, I use, and that's why I have such an eclectic background and footage of like everything.
Your filmography alone, outside of television work, it's so varied and so cool. Like Chris and I, when we were first bouncing this off of each other, he was like, "Did you know that she was in Spaceballs?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." But that, you worked with Mel Brooks.
I know, and that's actually a really good experience. I was a cool experience because a casting director who became a friend later, he was at Disney, and he wanted me. I read for the part of the waitress, so I actually had a legit audition to read the waitress in the diner scene that I was in. And Mel Brooks cast every role, even the smallest, tiniest, one word, one line. he literally, it was like so cool. So you walk into the meeting, instead of meeting a cast director, you're meeting Mel Brooks. And he goes, I really like you, but you're not a blonde. I was, brunette then. And I'm like, but I can wear a wig. I can wear a wig. Whatever. I'll dye my hair, whatever. And he goes, no, I really like you. And you're really funny. Just show up. I'm going to throw some lines at you and we'll make it work. So for like 1 or 2 lines, people know me. I had my hair blown out before I talked to you because it was a mess. And the young girl's like, you were in Spaceballs. And it's like, my gosh, with all the things, like, that's what I'm known for, but it's so cool. I have to say, I got a lot of friends of mine that were comics, and I got a lot of friends that auditioned for that film that all had little roles in it. Like, because he literally auditioned every person. He was very cool. Very so cool.
That would just be the ultimate to work with Brooks. So
I wish I could work with him more.
Me too, because that was the perfect little, like that perfect little bit and your line. Like you just like, that's amazing. And that whole sequence with the chest burster.
Yeah. I know, Andy. I ordered a Louisiana sandwich. It was really my dress. I wore a red latex dress. He loved it. And he was cool. I did get to work with some of my idols. So the first thing I ever was cast in was a Bob Hope special. I know you guys are young, but I'm sure you know who Bob Hope is. So,
yes,
so this is when my pageant kind of, those days kicked back in, is like, so my agent sends me out to an audition at NBC and she says, oh, there'll just be some other girls there. I don't know. It was like my first audition. And I get there and there's a line wrapped around the block of girls all looking like me, like 700 or to 1,000. It was really an open call. It wasn't like an audition where it's like, maybe 20, 30 women. And so I'm like, well, I've done this before. I've been in pageants. So I waited my turn, and the first day they narrowed it down to 50. And then the 50 girls that they narrowed it down to, they were casting 6. They narrowed it down to 50. And then we got to go and audition in front of Bob Hope. And that was cool. And his daughter, who was producing. And I remember I kicked my foot. I'm like, I'm a dancer too. And I kicked my foot and my shoe. It was a pump. Now they're back in style. Those clear pumps went flying and hit the table like next to. I could have killed Bob Hope with my shoe. But I really think that, like, he didn't forget me. I got it along with 5 other women. And that really started opening doors. That, started opening doors. And I got to work with Bob Hope, and then really old George Burns. I got to work. I did a sketch on Johnny Carson, and I really think the popularity of Up All Night, I probably would have become a guest with Johnny, but he was retiring the year that it started, and it was just kind of, the timing was off, and I was so frustrated. And then I started, stand up. I was doing stand up, and I think my stand up was getting good enough at that point because I ended up headlining, but good enough to actually audition for the Tonight Show, but my timing was off. And then when Jay Leno came, it was just a whole new, even though I know Jay Leno, it was just a whole new world. But I would have loved to have done it with Johnny Carson, who I just think is still to this day was the best.
I agree 100%. That would have been amazing too.
But it was cool to work with Johnny, and I was he was very intimidated. I was intimidated. I mean, he was very sweet, but I was very intimidated just because when somebody you watch from your childhood, as you know, like my parents watched Johnny Carson. I'm like, wow, I'm working with Johnny Carson, and I was playing Scarlett O'Hara to his Rhett Butler, and it was. And I think they probably cast me because I had the antebellum dress. So yeah, I've had this weird career, and then even when I was in New Orleans. I posed for Playboy with all my clothes on. They came through town looking to do a layout called Girls of the New South. And I was just always curious. I'm just a curious person. So I wanted to meet the photographer, and my agent goes, do you want to pose for Playboy? I'm like, yeah, I just told her that because I wanted to meet him. So when I meet him, his name was David Chan. He was a very famous photographer at that time for Playboy. And I said, I know I'm wasting your time because I'm not going to take off my clothes. He goes, no. For women of this and that, we shoot all kinds of pictures, semi-clothes, all the clothes on, clothes off. It's up to you. I said, well, I'd love to do it with all my clothes on. And he goes, well, what are your outfits? And I told him I have this big, back then you can't say it anymore, but an antebellum Scarlett O'Hara dress. He goes, well, let's shoot in that. And so we shot in a whole bunch of outfits, but we shot in that outfit. And that ended up in Playboy magazine. And it started such a ruckus because I was reigning as Queen of the Floral Trail, which was a social honor, not a beauty pageant. I mean, I was Miss Louisiana, different pageants, but this was like one that you're kind of like a faux debutante. Your parents put up money and then you reigned as the It's very New Orleans, the queen of the floral trail, which beautifies the cities, parkways, and all that. Anyway, they got upset of the connotation of me appearing in Playboy, so they dethroned me, and I was furious. So this is my first time as a woman standing up. That's why in my book, I'm like, I was an accidental feminist. I stood up to the floral trail. I'm like, I'm dressed like this with all my clothes on. I can't help it if the magazine, I wasn't, not that should have mattered, but back then it did. So I brought them to court and to file an injunction for them to reinstate me as queen. Well, it didn't happen, but the judge said, you can file for monetary damages, but I was just starting. So there was no monetary damages, but I had the lieutenant governor vow for me. I had the mayor of New Orleans vow. It was crazy. It was like, I wish I could find a lawsuit. I somewhere have it in my paperwork at my office. It was a 6-hour lawsuit that went on and on with all these people like going, Rhonda's a good girl. It was just so silly. But anyway, that was my first time coming up, as a young person against, older people and just the politics of it, and that they didn't care that I was young and it could hurt my career or whatever. So anyway, it was just very interesting. Playboy stayed in my life. Though, because of that, they wrote about me in the back of the magazine many times because they thought it was so funny that I got, there was girls that lost titles because they didn't have clothes on, but here I am with clothes on. So they kept up with my career. And anytime I was on a show, they'd write about it. And then I brought to them in 1990 an idea because as a stand-up comic, I was getting, it's different now, but I was getting all this pushback, like, you're too pretty or too sexy to be a comic. You can't stand up and be funny. And so I went to Playboy and I said, can we do girls of comedy? Because I have some beautiful friends and they have a hard time getting stage time, but they're so pretty and funny. And so I pulled it together and that happened. And then I got cast in Up All Night, and then Up All Night kind of exploded. And then they came to me to do a celebrity layout like the next year, which was very cool.
I have both of those. It's like the Ladies of Comedy issue from 91, and I also have your Up All Night edition.
Thank you. It was fun. It was I mean,
great.
Terrified. I'd never done anything like that, but it was fun. And Hugh Hefner wanted to do, I like him. I don't care what's going on about him. He was always he was wonderful to me and all the women that I knew, but he wanted it to be funny and humorous. And so that's why we shot in places that were open all night long. And it was a very famous particular issue because it was Jenny McCarthy's first layout and Jerry Seinfeld was on the cover, and there's only a few men ever on the cover. So it's a really hard issue to get. And I think I have a few somewhere around, but it was cool. It was a very cool time. So I did all these random things. And I did a billboard on Sunset Boulevard. I had a poster out. And so people would say, but you're in my early days, you're out there so much, but you're everywhere. Like, people know your name, but they don't know what you can do. But I majored in publicity and PR and marketing. So I guess that I came from that background. You did too.
Yeah, I'm communications major.
So see, I always thought, you had to sell yourself. So I probably pushed a little too hard, even though I'm shy. I would do things to get in front of people, and I guess in the end, it really worked. Because I have to say, my husband and I, we were high school sweethearts. We're reunited, and we've been in this business now 20 years. And I mean, this business has brought us, wonderful things. And I think it all kind of led up to make way for this business, my background. And I never sold a thing. I never worked as a waitress. I never sold anything until I got on HSN. But it was the comedy background, I think, that allowed me to be myself and be myself with my customers when I'm selling bras. I mean, you have to be very honest about, you're talking boobs. You're talking boobs and butts, so they want to know what's really going on with that. And I think a little humor and levity really helps.
For sure. And it's more than that. It makes people comfortable too when you're dealing with that type of subject matter.
Right.
Was that comedy, like, you are an amazing comedian. Was that what landed you on, like, for going into Up All Night?
It helped. What had happened was, through my career, and I love sitcoms. I went to LA to be in a sitcom. I never cared about, I know it's crazy. I was a television baby. I love The Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, and I love Lucy and all those shows. So I wanted the sitcom genre. I thought it was like doing a little mini play, rehearse all week, and then you film on Friday. I love that. I never cared about films. So I should have gone after I could have done so many of the films that I hosted because I knew all those producers, but I never went after it. It was really weird. I look back and I know I was stupid. I could have been all the B film goddesses that I had on the show. I could have been one of them, but I just didn't really pursue it. But yeah, so I loved the whole television world. So I was doing a lot of it in the 80s. I was married with children and Happy Days, one after another. And my dad passed away in 84 and it really set me back. I had George Shapiro, Howard West as managers, and they managed Jerry Seinfeld. And I went back to New Orleans for almost a year, and it just kind of messed up everything. It was the first great loss in my life. I was really depressed. I walked off of a set of Cheers because I felt physically, literally ill, and they were very sweet, and they recast me when I got back in a smaller role. But I think my career was really going great guns in the direction I wanted, and it just kind of made it a little stale when I got back. So I started doing stand-up comedy. I love comedy with a partner. And then that eventually led to me on my own. And then of course, everybody was telling me, you can't do it. So when you tell me you can't do it, then I want to do it more. And that's always kind of the story of my life. You tell me, no, I'm going to do it. So I kind of broke through some, definitely some windows or doors or whatever at that point, and slowly but surely worked myself up from 5 minutes to a half an hour to headlining at the Improv, and all these comedy clubs where people told me I would never work, but managers never knew what to do with me. They were like, well, I don't know where to put you. I mean, like, put me in a sitcom. But then Up All Night came along, and then I was told, well, you can never play the girl next door. You can never do this. You're always this was before Up All Night. You're the sexy, which I always played on the shows. I always was a bombshell. So I got so tired of hearing that and trying to play against it. I finally, when I got the audition for Up All Night, I'm like, heck with it. I am going all in sexy. I am going 100%. I'm going the opposite because it's a hosting job. So I'm thinking, oh, well, it could be like a newscaster or something. I went completely opposite. I wore a dress cut down it was laced up, red dress, cut low in the back. I walked in with a blow dryer. I plugged it in. I pretended like I was blowing out my hair. I was really messing with it. And I just went for this huge character. I just went over the top, and I went, if I get it, great. And if I don't, I don't care. I'm tired of being told that I'm too this and too that. And sure enough, it took like a month before I heard anything, because they had all these people audition. And most of them auditioned very hosty, like newscastery. And they finally they said, yeah, you've got you're what we want. And it's kind of weird because they had another gal on named Caroline Schlitt, who I did not know personally. But when I look back at her footage, I think she was really funny and ahead of her time, but they wanted overtly sexy. I think they wanted really to play into the films, I thought really, yeah, I think she was really good and really funny. And my management company at that time was Dick Clark Productions. And it's really funny because the guy that was producing, blanking on his name now, but anyway, the guy who actually ended up casting me, when they came back to production after they let Caroline go, they let him go too. So I felt so bad because he was the one that okayed me, but I had nothing to do with it. They just wanted to go a whole, you have no control over that. I mean, through my years on Up All Night, I was on for like almost 8 years, and I think I had 6 producers and directors. So, but each one, I mean, if you really study Up All Night, you can see the difference in the years. So very sexy years, and then they got more into like a little edgier, because I also had Gilbert Gottfried's producer, director, who was very edgy. In the beginning, I hated those shows. Now when I look back, I'm like, those were funny. And then I had a producer director at the very end who let me do what I want to do. And we did Lucy, and I impersonated Cher, and we did all the things I kind of wanted to do. So there was more acting involved because we had to fill, Up All Night had to fill, or Up All Night had to fill the time that was cut out of films. So some films had a lot of nudity and a lot of cursing. So they would fill, take out those parts. And then I could fill anywhere from 10 minutes of time to 45 minutes or more. So it just depended. Some weeks were very short shows, and some weeks were 16-hour shoot days. And I loved it. We shot, every week. So we were never down like a sitcoms. I love doing Up All Night. It was just an incredible experience. And of course, it really has defined, I think, my life. It has. I mean, and including even the intimate apparel business. I think except for Spaceballs, I think I'm definitely the most known for Up All Night. And I love doing it. And I love Gilbert, and I'm very sad and miss him. And he was so brilliant. And I'm so glad that he found love and had kids later in life, because his wife is awesome. So I was so devastated because saw him a couple of years ago, and then I had done a little Facebook, a little web show, which we still run old clips on it when the pandemic started. And I had him on as a guest, and he was so delighted. He never told me no. He's kind of like me, kind of said yes to everything too.
He was so funny. You guys, the best.
I know.
I'm biased. My favorite was, when you had the solo hosting. Like you came in 91, and then you, like, when it was Rhonda episodes and it was Friday Night Rhonda, like that was my jam. But I loved Gilbert Gottfried too. And you two together, like you would come onto his show,
right, and
then he would come onto yours.
Yes.
But you guys together, there's so much intelligence between the two of you that you just, like, I knew as a kid, this wasn't scripted. Like,
no,
you were going back and forth.
No, thank you, Liz. Thank you for saying that. It was frustrating because we had an incredible chemistry together. And I kept thinking, why doesn't USA Network do something with us together?
Right.
This will be my sitcom, right? I'm like, this will be the one. And I look back at those old shows now and I'm like, God, we were good together. We really were. And it was very frustrating that no one saw that, even his wife would say, and even I was on one of his podcasts, and it's the dirtiest podcast I think he did. You got to go find it if you haven't heard it, because I led him down a path on purpose, telling him all the old guys I dated in LA years ago. And he did an impression of every one of them. He's so dirty and so blue, but it was so funny. And I was really great just knowing him and working. He was a very giving, funny. He was cheap. He would always borrow money for a phone because that's what we used back then. But loving, and off camera, very quiet, not the guy you saw, but love women. I mean, he definitely loved women, and it would make all kinds of boob references the whole time. But, he endorsed my book, and, was very sweet and kind, and wrote a very funny quote for the back of it. But I do think that he and I have some of the funniest shows, and even I get a kick out of looking back. Yes. Some of it was scripted or loosely scripted, or, we had an idea, but most of it was just back and forth. Okay.
Was that setup, your setup on Up All Night, your trundle bed, your stuffed animals, all of that, was that you? Was that come from your mind?
Yeah. Okay. So, my first producer, his name was Tommy Lynch. It's so funny because Tommy, I went back and did like something really early in my career, and he is like, he's still out there. He's a huge kids producer. I mean, he was known for children's programming, but he got this gig, and he came over to my house and sat in my kitchen or apartment, and I went, I really want to come up with some way that people remember my character. And I used to do a commercial in New Orleans it was for a women's health spa. It was like, I would say, let's get in shape. And it was like, that was the thing. And everybody would go, you're the let's get in shape girl. But it stuck with me. When people would see me in New Orleans, they would say it to me. And I'm like, something that somebody will remember. I'm like, I'm going to say Up All Night. And I said, and he said, I love that. And I said, I want to go ditzy, but I want to be smart ditzy. I want it to be, when they listen to me, they hear. And my voice was high in the beginning, but then I kind of got into my own register through, like I think within the first year or second year. And then I had this woman who directed me named Cac Young. And I had worked with Cac before, but Cac is an amazing director. And she's also, she did a lot of the variety shows like Circus of the Stars. I mean, she was like one of the first directors. Anyway, long story short, I had come up with the bet. That was my idea, to come up with the bet. I just thought, well, you want to keep people, watching these movies, which USA thought were so bad. And you want to keep them engaged, and I'm supposed to keep them engaged. Well, let's make it really sexy. Let's put me in intimate lingerie and sexy clothes. And they're like, well, the first year was like, let's go out on the town. Let's start in the bedroom, but it's going to be Rhonda showing everybody LA. And I went, well, that's fun. And so the first year was a lot of that. I'd start in the bedroom, and then would go out on the town, best hamburger in town, all kinds of stuff. And then Kat brought it back into the studio more. So when she came in, she said, let's do a heart-shaped bed. She loved it. She loved the sexy. So we did a heart-shaped bed, and then she did this, this green screen behind me so that things could go on in the green screen. I think that was heart-shaped. And she even pushed the sexy more, which is funny because you think a female, but she liked that it was smart and funny. So we did more, we started having more guests coming in, which I loved. And we used a lot of, Raider cheerleaders, all the cheerleaders, all the B film stars, Linnea Quigley, all of the, Michelle Bauer, all of them would come on.
Know more about that too. You and Linnea Quigley.
I love Linnea.
Talk about chemistry. You guys were just brilliant together. And like, that was my first taste of Linnea Quigley, because I didn't know any until I saw her film.
And she's such a good person. She lived in, I live in Florida now. She lived in Florida for a while, but she really had LA in her blood. She inherited a home, I think, from family here, and then she moved back. She's still working, and I love it. She looks the same. She's this tiny little petite thing and loves animals and saves everything. But she's wonderful. She's really wonderful. And we did so many. She was a fan favorite. So as much as we could get her, we would use her. And of course, Toxic Avenger, we would use Lloyd Kaufman or Toxie a lot.
You were my introduction to trauma. That was my introduction to trauma, was when you played Toxic Avenger, and I was, what is this? And you're like talking to the Toxic Avenger. I'm like, what is going on here? My little brain was just like, wow.
We did so much. We did, and it was so good. And Lloyd would come on, and he's so funny. And I did this little film, years back, about 16 years back, called Prison a Go-Go, and Lloyd was in it, and I was in it, and like all these guys that produced it love Lloyd. And I was the prison. No, I was in prison, but I owned I don't know. I don't remember, but you got to find it. If you haven't seen Prison to Go-Go, it's kind of silly, but Lloyd was in it. And I just love Uncle Lloyd. I've had him on my, even through the years, whatever I ask him to do, he's there for me too. But I never did one of his films. It's so funny. I'm like, Lloyd, put me in one of your films. It's not too late. So, but all those gals were amazing. And all the B Queens were amazing. And we still, I had a lot of them on like my little Facebook show. And they're out there still working. I've had such an eclectic group. I had the female wrestlers, the Glow Girls, the B film stars, some porn stars. I walked this really interesting line between that world and the cult world. So, I one year hosted the AVM Awards. It's like so wild. It's like, but I kind of like wouldn't trade my eclectic career now. It's been, maybe it wasn't, this, exactly the career in terms of my sitcom, but I do have a story, and it is in my book, and the boys might have, Dustin might have seen it. But if you read Up All Night, that I think also put my career back. It's a little negative, but I'm going to tell you the story, because I think that not everybody, something can push you back when you're young and hold you back, and you don't realize it till years later. Because I was on a Happy Days, and Happy Days was using me a lot, to the point where I didn't even have to audition anymore. They would just call. They were little parts, but they were a lot. So I'd done a few, and I got a call to play Fonzie's girlfriend. But I think it was one line, and it was mainly kissing, walking around with him the whole show, kissing him. Anyway, I got to know Henry. I got to know all these guys. I actually dated Donnie Most a little bit. So Donnie and I were still friendly. We still talk on Facebook all the time. Anyway, so I got a commercial that same week for Purchase Fried Chicken. Now, when you get a commercial, it's good money, and you're a young actor and you want to make money because you get the residuals. So it was Thursday that the commercial was filming, and Friday is when Happy Days filmed. And so I had rehearsed all week, and I spoke to Jerry Paris, and I spoke to, everybody but Henry. He's an actor. I said, I got this national commercial. It's really good money. And I only have, I've worked with you guys, whatever I said. And I said, is there any way I can get off? And they went, oh my gosh, we love you. We know you. Just go off and do the commercial. I said, you sure? And they're like, yes. So anyway, no one told Henry. So that Thursday I do the commercial. They're rehearsing, and Henry goes, where's Rhonda? And they go, well, Rhonda's filming a commercial. And he went ballistic, and he hired somebody who was a stand-in for one of the other actresses and made her Screen Actors Guild right then and there. Taft Hartley'd her. And so no one called to tell me I didn't have the role. They wanted to teach me or Henry wanted to teach me a lesson, not anybody else. And so I walk in the next day, ready to film early in the morning. And my name is not on the little dressing room that they had for me. And I'm looking around, and the stage director, they're like, Henry wants to talk to you. I'm like, Henry, okay. So I go and talk. Henry has had his own like dressing room, and I go in there, and he sits me down. He goes, "You want to be an actress, right?" I go, "Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing." He goes, "You should never have done what you did yesterday." I'm like, "But I asked everybody." He goes, "This happened to me when I was in college. I did something similar and I lost the play, and this is to teach you a lesson." And I said, and I'm crying. I mean, I'm not like a little crying. It's like, but, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I would never have done this. Never, never." I mean, of course, acting comes before. He goes, "Well, I'm going to teach you a lesson and you're off the show." Okay. So that was bad, and it hurt, just hurt on many levels, because I'm a good person. I would never do that to him or anybody else. But, the producers, they're going to, of course, in retrospect, get behind their star, who's Henry Winkler. And it's a small role for me. But what it did is it blackballed me from Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley, and every single Gary Marshall show. And so I really think, and I've talked about this with my husband a lot through the years. This is truly why my comedy career, my sitcom career didn't go forward. So everybody's always makes over Henry. And I'm like, I don't make over Henry, because that was horrible. I love helping young people. I put as many young people, models. I work with models. If I can make and help them and give them time in front of the camera, I've done it on Up All Night. I've done it as an actress. I've done that now, even with models I work with. Still have gorgeous women around me. I'll never get away from that. And I'm like, what he did was so wrong. It was just so wrong. And so when I was promoting my book, somebody interviewed me, and they were like, "Can we reach out to Henry about this?" I'm like, "Oh, I'd love you to reach out to Henry about it." And they did, but they didn't get him. They got his publicist, and he, he says, "That's not true. I'm just an actor. I didn't have the power to do that." No, he told them to do that. And it was just horrible. And I still like to run into him one day and go up to him. And it's funny, because if I went to any of these Comic-Cons, I know I would run into him, and I'm like, I need to do that. I need to get this off my back.
Now I know it's not a good thing. I'm at one of these Comic-Cons, which I go to frequently. What a jerk.
I know. He was. I think it's great actor.
Jerks. I revisited, like, this was a big deal for me as a kid, because you were a part of WrestleMania 10.
Yes.
And you had that Up All Night before WrestleMania 10. And you cut so many promos with so many wrestlers. And I didn't realize this as a kid, but I did, like, revisiting those, I do now. They would hit on you and say awful things to you, and you just bounced it right back to them. Like, you didn't give shit. Sorry, Chris, but you bounce it right back, and that is amazing.
They had huge egos, and I didn't care, because as much I wasn't in their genre, and I loved working with them, and some of them were so kind and so nice, because USA at that point they had the exclusive rights to, it was a WWF back then.
Yeah.
So they cross promoted a lot. So they came on my show a lot, and I did, but they had me do 10. The funny thing about 10, which keeps coming up later in life, which is really weird to me, was, I was a celebrity. I rang the bell, had a couple of sketches with Burt Reynolds. So I knew Burt Reynolds. I never dated Burt Reynolds, but there was this whole thing that came out. I had to move this off my phone. This whole thing that came out that I had an affair with Burt Reynolds, and I'm the one who broke him up with Lonnie Anderson. And it was on the cover of not National Enquirer, but like Star or one of those. I don't know if they're still around anymore. And then I started getting calls from Burt Reynolds' publicist. "Did you plant this?" And I'm like, "No, I would never plant. I don't want anybody to think I'm even that kind of girl. Like, no, I would never plant that." And I said, "It makes me look as bad." So what they did is they claimed that at WrestleMania, someone walked in and caught Burt and I in the act in a dressing room. So the other day, someone sent me, not the other day, but literally like within the last month or two, someone sent me an interview that somebody big from WrestleMania. I don't know those people. I know McMahon and his wife, like I knew them. Now I know them even more through the years, but I knew who he was, and I worked with him that night. But but it's not like I knew or was friendly with anybody from that world. But somebody who was behind the scenes there said, yeah, that Rhonda Shear and Burt Reynolds, they were really going at it. And I'm like, this was like recently someone interviewed this person. And I'm like, why would you lie and say that? It was so creepy, like years later. So I don't know what it is. It's kind of funny. And I'm not mad about it. I mean, it's just, it's just funny that sometimes things that aren't true get around. But Bert was a sweet guy. And I ended up working with him several times after that and like just different projects. And it was always that fun, flirty thing. We never, ever dated. I mean, he'd call me up and would talk on the phone, but we never dated. It was lovely. So sometimes things, that people, it's not true. Some of it is true, but some of it's completely not.
It's great for an inquiry.
I can't imagine it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think now with social media and the world out there, it would be insane. But
yeah, that would be on TMZ in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
I can remember you. I vaguely remember you like being in we had Kroger's here, being in the Kroger grocery line and seeing you at that time on those tabloid magazines. But I knew you. Like I was like, whoa, like that's Rhonda Shear.
I know. It was very, it was great. At that point it was fun. And, paparazzi, when we did go to events, they would call my name and take pictures. And I was like, it was fun. I can't imagine what it is now when these people are like chased. It was never like that for me, but it was so much fun to be on the red carpet and have a little taste of that through the years and, have a little taste of the Hollywood royalty. But they loved, because usually I was in an up all night kind of outfit. So they loved putting all that stuff. And they would make it like, this is how I dress. Well, I probably did dress like that a lot when I went out, but they would wear anything. It was latex or goofy, or they'd catch me on the set and take a picture and say that I was out at a restaurant like that. And I was like, cool, just run it. You being a, PR major, there's no bad PR. There's really no bad PR.
Sure. Not at all. We're hitting right at the tail end of this interview, and I want to hit your lingerie line and your book. The lingerie line is unreal. I didn't know that existed even until one day I had COVID. I was lying in bed and I was miserable and I was watching HSN because I'm like, I'm just going to order a bunch of stuff. Like, I don't even care today. Like, I feel terrible. I can't get up. I'm just going to order things off of HSN. And there you were.
My goodness.
And I was like, holy crap, that's Rhonda Shear. And she had of anyone in this world that knows lingerie, you would. And it's weird. This is me being creepy, but I wanted to be you so badly that I was like, wow, I'm going to buy everything that she puts out. So the moment that I got an abra, I'm a big chested woman.
You're beautiful.
That wearing an abra is an experience like no other when you've got boobs, because you have support. And your back doesn't hurt at the end of the day. And your clothes look better because your boobs aren't bouncing over everything or underneath something.
Right.
Like, how did this come about? I know that you had, I read that you had started a lingerie line, like you started out with Mrs. Hefner and then went on.
Actually, it's way before I did a line for her, but no. So really quick. So when my husband and I dated all these moguls and all these people and stand-ups and Glenn Fry from the Eagles, and I end up with the first guy I ever kissed. So my husband is my junior high school sweetheart. We met at 12 and 13. And I thought when you turned 40 in LA, you were done. Unlike J-Lo and all these people who are in their 50s now, I was like, if I would have thought that, I would have stayed at it, right? But I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. I have to leave now. And so I'm a little over 40 and I'm thinking, and I'm not married. I've never been married. I have no kids because I was so career focused the whole time. So lo and behold, I had been with someone 14 years, a stand-up, a long time. And I loved him, but I knew he wasn't going to be the guy I was going to marry because he knew he was going to always stay where he is. I mean, I love him to death. He's a great friend, but he's still in the same place. So out of nowhere, my husband reaches out to me through classmates.com. And he was the love of my life. I talked about him through the years. And I'm like, oh my God, like Van Fagan reaching out to me. I'm so mad at him because he was the only boy who really broke my heart. He broke up with me when we were, because I was starting to get popular. I was a cheerleader, and boys were calling me, and he was jealous. And then he came over to my house one day to get me, and I had gone on a date or for a ride with some other boy, and he broke up, and that was it. And so he broke my heart. So years later, he came back at 22. He came back to see if there was any interest, but I was literally, my bags were packed and I was moving to LA. And he came to my mom's house and my dad's house and said, "Oh, this is the first Playboy I was in." He goes, "I want you to sign this Playboy for my dad." His dad collected Playboys. So I was in the back of the house in my bedroom, and I'm like, "Van Fagan, no, I'm moving to LA." So I signed the Playboy to my future in-laws just to make him crazy. And and I never saw him. And then he went off and got married and had kids and never saw him. So he reaches out to me years later, and I'm like, wow, I wonder what he looks like, because he was so handsome. And so I start messing with him. Because I decided I just want to tease him and flirt with him and then break his heart. I really did. That was my plan. Yeah, but he messed with me. So he was going to come out to LA, and I broke the date in the middle of the night, and he was like, "Oh, same girl." And so then he goes, "Well, you could be missing out on meeting the sexiest, most fabulous man in the world." I'm thinking, well, he's awful cocky. I've been on TV. He's been watching me. I don't know what he looks like. And so a guy I was dating at the time a little bit says, "You don't want to go out with him. He's probably shops at Piggly Wiggly, and he's this and that, horrible looking." And so I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." Anyway, long story short, I went back to Christmas 3 months later after we started this back and forth through classmates.com. And we made a date, and I was in my mom's house, and I came out of the back, and I see him in the kitchen talking to my mom, and it was sparks again. Yes. And 15 days later, we eloped, and we've been married.
Well, you're quite the power couple. And I was talking to Chris about that as well, and Dustin, because you guys, just business-wise alone, you guys are just a mega power couple. And I wanted to ask you too about your charity work, because not only do you make these wonderful bras and lingerie, everything for women, you're giving back to women too.
We love doing that. We love doing it.
Unreal.
We started the business because we really didn't have anything else. We didn't have a business plan. I'm like, I love intimates. I wore them on up all night. There's something missing. We sent some things out to HSN just because he was living in Louisiana. I was living in LA, and we just did it, just to see what would happen. And they had just lost someone in their intimate apparel world that wasn't that big at the time, but they said, let's give it a try. And we sold out. So that started. I mean, we knew nothing. I mean, he was a businessman, but I didn't know anything about manufacturing. Long story short, we got one step. We invested in ourselves. We never had a fight over money or financial. We kept building and building and building. And then we just felt like, well, it's been 20 years I've been in the business now. And we love giving back to all kinds of American Cancer Society, breast cancer, Heart Association, local charities, Big with Dogs. You heard one of them. I have 5 of them running around here. So SPCA. And I love doing things for women because a lot of women that love my bras have breast cancer. So it makes me feel great when they tell me, "Oh, you make me feel great about my body," or I feel like a woman again, like it's huge. So we love doing that. And it's just a big deal for us to give back. We feel very fortunate that we got back together. We put together this business, we just wanted to make a living and be together and make up for lost time. And instead, it's done very well. And knock wood, we've been on HSN 20 years, and we continue. We're in other places as well, but and our own website as well. But we've been very fortunate to continue on. And and it's not just the Abra. We have thousands of other SKUs, but the Abra put a big spotlight on our brand because we sold 35 million of them worldwide.
They're well worth every penny. I can say that.
You have to be a spokesperson for me. You have to do some social media, and I need to send you a whole package of goodies. We're going to make that happen.
I have clocked them on Instagram on my stories so many times because I know so many women that go through bras. Yes. And it's such a waste of money because we don't want to go try on bras. We're buying them off the internet, or we're buying them at a store, not trying them on, and then we get them home and they're terrible. They're big.
Oh, my next line coming out won't be till 2023. We have some bras that are just I'm so excited about them. So I've always tried to size by apparel size, which is harder, but I find it's more universal if I can do that. So I love this business. I mean, it's very different than my first career, but it's also very exciting to help women. So years in, my husband never knew he was in the software business before, but he says, I never knew I was going to be in the real software business. But we still have fun. We really have fun. And this 20 years have flown by. We're married now 21 years. And first kiss.
Power couple, if there ever was a power couple. Can you tell me where I'm getting wrapped up at this time? Can you tell us about the book?
I've named it the bottom line, Life Lessons from an Accidental Feminist, because truly and truly my years, everything I've ever done, it was for women and continues to be for women, even in my current business. So I had to go through so many doors being slammed and being told no. And I just was like, yes. Like my idol was Joan Rivers too. And I worked with her many times. And she had the same thing. Like she never took no for an answer. So it's a really good book. It talks about my career, it has a lot of pictures in it, but it also talks about how to start a business and how to find love later in life. Cause I didn't, find Van and I didn't reunite until our 40s. So it's a good book for even anybody. Oh no, you're beautiful, Liz. I really do want to send you, and we really have to hook up to do some social media things. And
please, that would be awesome.
So sweet. I mean, you just don't even know how you've made me feel great today. Growing up. I mean, when I hear that, it's like, it just does my heart just so. And when I hear it from women, I hear a lot from guys, but when I hear it from women, it's like, wow. I do know that we had a lot of female followers and viewers, and I do still get fan mail, like little snail mail, like every day. And I love it.
I wrote to you once as a kid. My parents didn't know, my grandparents didn't know, because they couldn't know that I watched your show because I had to sneak to watch it on Friday nights. So I wrote to the Beverly Hills P.O. box when I was a kid.
Wow.
And I'm sure it was just the worst thing you ever got if you looked at it, because it was just like terrible.
Oh my gosh.
But I just told you that thank you for showing The Evil Dead, because I was floored by The Evil Dead that night. And like, of course it was cut.
Right.
As a kid, I didn't care. I was like, this is amazing. And that opened me up to the world of everything else that you showed.
Isn't it funny though, how all of you all were, influenced by your childhood and you still love these things today? My husband and I, all the things we loved as kids are things that we still love, even in our taste of furniture. So all of those things that's why I tell kids, that's why I tell young people, hold on to those jobs and those things you have, because this is who makes you and molds you into what you are. So I love that you still have pink behind you and that you're so feminine.
I live for it. And like, I cannot tell you enough how much your influence has had over me in the most positive ways, even with the giving back. Like the more that I know about what you have done, like when I've heard all of that and when I had read about all of that, I started, like, we give to animal charities for our fest every year. If I book a show, like we just took some money for Sandy Hook Promise at the last show that I booked. Like these little things about you, these wonderful things about you, the feminist things about you stick with us as women, the women that grew up with you. And I just want you to know we love you, and
I love you too.
Everything that you do, like, it's amazing. You're a goddess among women.
Oh, Liz, I love you. Thank you. You've just made my year. And I hope to work with you again and talk with you off this. We can be friends. We don't have to be on camera. And I do want to send you just a big goodie bag of goodies and bras and things. But we'll make that happen with, my people will talk to your people.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I know Chris gives you a huge thank you too. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
All right. Thank you, dear. Wait. Thank you, Liz, for staying up all day and night with me. Love and sizzle kisses. Thank you. Thank you, baby. Bye-bye.
Thank you.